Hey, I'm Kai, and today is going to be my first impressions of the Hotone Ampero II Stomp. Now, I really want the focus of this video to be sort of how intuitive it is and how easy it is to learn, so I've only spent about 20 minutes with this one off camera just getting the sort of general gist of it before I'm actually diving into this video. Now, this is a sponsored video as this pedal is on loan to me from Hotone's UK distributor, and there's an affiliate link in the description box if you'd like to purchase this pedal for yourself. That said, I'm going to try and keep this as objective as possible and go through my genuine, honest opinions on the unit. For housekeeping's sake, the guitar I'm using in this demo is my Balaguer Synthwave Espada, currently tuned down to drop D. So the first thing I noticed was that everything looks instantly accessible straight from the unit, and I think this is partially helped by the fact that it's got a touchscreen. Just on this main page I can see we've got a drum icon, which is probably going to be a drum machine. We've got the settings, we've got save, we can swap between the presets, there's a metronome, volume, and we've even got some of the controls from within the preset. Something that took just a few seconds for me to figure out was switching from the preset view like this into the deeper edit view. This is with the S icon in the top left corner. So now we can see all of the stuff that goes into this preset. We can click any of these, open up the edit, and then we've got all of the parameters for that preset. Super easy to figure out, just instantly able to get up and running with it. I also really like that you can see the input and output meters on the face of the unit itself. I think these are kind of too small to really be super useful, but it is a nice touch. So yeah, first impressions, it sounds pretty good. This is a very generic sort of stock preset. That classic big lead sound, it's just an easy win really. So now let's get into the general overview of what this pedal is and what it does. This is a guitar modeler, meaning that it's got guitar amps, cabinets, pedals, effects, all that sort of stuff, so it's essentially an all-in-one guitar rig. Also does work on bass, by the way. The inputs and outputs of this pedal are stripped down to basically everything you need and nothing more. You've got a stereo input, stereo output, and a stereo effects loop for you to add in external effects. For the purposes of this video, I'm running a mono input from my guitar, then running out from a stereo input into my interface. On the left-hand side of the unit, you've got your headphone input and your aux input if you want to jam along to some backing tracks. On the right side, you've got MIDI input, MIDI output, as well as USB-C, quite a nice touch, so that you can attach it to your computer and connect it up to the desktop editor and you can update it. Also on the inputs and outputs, you've got a foot switch expression pedal jack, which lets you connect up to 2 different external foot switches, or an expression pedal for things like wah and whammy and volume, things like that. The only other thing to mention is the power. This takes a 800 milliamp 9-volt power supply, which is pretty standard for pedals of this size. It means that it's sort of pedal board friendly, though it does require quite a lot of juice to power it. So in the I/O options for this pedal, you can switch between electric guitar inputs, acoustic guitar inputs, and line inputs for things like keyboards. The output level can be switched from line to instrument. This can be useful if you're running it straight into an amp, for instance. I'm running into the interface, so I'm using the line output. One thing that I really want to give this unit credit for is that you can turn off the cabinet impulses on one of the inputs as a global setting. This means that you can run one of the outputs straight to front of house with a cabinet on it, and you can run another output to a power amp and cabinet like I've got in the background here with the orange pedal baby and the Zilla 4x12. I may do a video trying out that setup in the future because that would be my perfect way to run this unit live. Another thing I noticed in the controls menu is that it's got a calibrate function for the expression, something that I really wish the HX1 had because I can't use my expression pedal with the HX1 at all. There's also auto cab match, which means that you can cycle through the different amps and not have to worry about the cabinets being mismatched. So you can flick from a Vox to a Marshall to a Mesa Boogie, and it will automatically adjust the cabinet to match. This generally gives you a better idea of each cabinet in their perfect environment. Also, a little unique thing I want to go through in this: the displays can be changed color. This was present in the Ampero Mini, and I really like that, so let's change the color over to cyan instead. So if I press back on the unit, I imagine I'm going to be taken to an empty preset, and then I can enter the preset view by pressing the S. We're going to add a cabinet to start with. Let's go for Guitar Cab L, which would be the large cabs. Let's go for a Mesa 4x12. And then we exit out of that, I guess. Yeah. I did notice that the microphones have mix files, which is quite nice. This is a mix of a 57 and a 421, or a 57 and a 121. So we'll start with the 57 121 combo, and we'll pull it just away from the center position. I think I prefer the full sweep you get with something like the Fractal, where you can change the mic position freely. But, you know, this isn't a bad way to go. Now I'm going to add in an amp, so I want something nice and crunchy here. I've got 2 fat fingers for this unit, but we're getting there. We're going to go for the Fryman B. This should be a Friedman, I think. Let's hear what that sounds like just on the stock settings. Okay, so I need to tune, and that reminds me, one thing that I really struggled to find on this unit was the tuner. There's no labeling anywhere as far as I can tell to let you know where the tuner is. You have to hold the number 1's foot switch. This tuner is actually super fast, super easy to use, and very responsive, which is something that's quite refreshing after trying a lot of these other budget modelers. We're going to need a little bit more hair on that tone, I think, so let's turn up the gain. You can also use your finger to swipe, but I find that the knobs give you a bit more of a finer, granular control. My path right now seems to be set up in a parallel path, so I will click on the Layers tab and I should be able to change it to serial, which means that the input will run through all of the available blocks in the unit out to the output. I think I want to add a noise gate, a drive, and maybe some reverb. I've heard good things about the AI gate in this. It should be pretty fast to react. There's also sidechain to the input, which is quite a nice thing to see on a pedal like this. Moving stuff around is super intuitive and easy, as you've got the touchscreen, which, you know, again, boosts this up over something like the HX Stomp, for instance. Okay, so I'm enjoying how that amp cab and gate sounds. Now let's add a drive. I want to boost this with something crunchy. I'm going to go for the yellow drive, and there's something about the desktop editor that I prefer to editing on the unit that I'll get into in just a sec. Okay, now I'm just going to add my reverb, and then we'll set up some of the controls. So I'm going to tap the foot switch icon, and this will bring up the foot switch menu. I'm going to tap the foot switch icon, and I have 2 fat fingers to use this unit. So foot switch number 1, I guess, will be assigned to number 1 here. So if we tap it, tap and hold. Okay, tap and hold. We want foot switch 1 to engage the drive and the reverb. And then we'll back out of that, I guess. Okay, so actually with this preset I only need one button to switch between the lead tone and the rhythm tone, as it's just a drive pedal and a reverb block. So yeah, that was actually relatively easy to build the preset. I'm now going to build it up in the desktop editor, show you a couple more features that the desktop editor has to offer, and see if we can hit the DSP limit. So the main feature I wanted to talk about in the desktop editor is that everything has descriptions, which is so useful when you're trying to have a look at all of these. They've all got icons of what the pedals are based on, the amps are based on, so you can really quickly associate it with what it is in the real world. I think for this preset I also want to add in a modulation, so we'll go for a chorus maybe. I'm also going to add in another drive block so that we can switch between two different drives. I guess that's going to be a good way to bulk out the preset. Not that I'd particularly use that kind of thing, but we'll see. We'll see if we can get this preset to max out. Okay, so we still haven't had any sort of DSP limitations come up yet, so we'll turn the reverb off and add another reverb and see if that does it. Still nothing, so let's try and add another amp into this. We'll switch off the original amp and add maybe a clean amp. Still seems to be going pretty well. I think we're starting to get some of these effects grayed out, but you can fit an awful lot into these patches. So we've hit the block limit before we've hit the DSP limit, which is something I really like to see. This means that we can pack in an awful lot into this pedal. Now I want foot switch 1 to be my clean tone, foot switch 2 to be my rhythm tone, and foot switch 3 to be my lead tone. I think the best way to set this one up is going to be through the scenes option, which I didn't think I was going to try and figure out on the fly, but since I've built a whole preset around it, I guess this is going to be the best place to do it, a trial by fire. So scene 1 is already now set up as my clean tone. Let's see if I can just go to scene 2 and then set up my dirty tone. So we're going to turn off the clean amp, turn on the dirty amp, turn off all of the post effects so that it's just my dirty tone. Oh, turn off the drive. Now for scene 3, this is going to be my solo tone, so we need the dirty amp, the cabinet, the noise gate, then we want the drive up in front, we want the delay, and we want one of the reverbs. So let's see if this does what I'm hoping it does. So these scenes are working, and now I just have to figure out how to get the foot switches to load up the scenes. Okay, so I've set up foot switch 1 to be scene 1, foot switch 2 I can set to be scene 2, and then foot switch 3 I can set to be scene 3. And then hopefully I'll be able to switch between them on the unit. No, what I've done instead is I've completely lost my whole preset. That's fine, I'm just going to move on. Okay, so for the pros and cons. Initially I thought that the lack of a DSP meter like the Fractal FM3 has was going to be something of a con. However, after setting up my own preset, I realised that this is only going to be in extreme circumstances where you hit this DSP meter. I think the small screen and the small icons on the screen, they make for quite a difficult user experience at times, but I haven't really had any misclicks, just clicks outside of the hitbox. This means that I haven't had anything that's fully messed up the preset, but I have had things that just slow me down a sec. I think the sounds of this unit are great. I didn't expect anything less from Hotone really. This is a fantastic sounding unit. I think some of these stock presets leave a little bit to be desired, but they can always do with a little bit of tweaking. After all, they've been made with someone else's guitar, someone else's hands, someone else's ears through someone else's monitoring system, so you can't expect them to be perfect every time. The main thing I want to say about this unit though is that it's so easy to use. Everything is so intuitive and it just comes to you naturally. I figured out scenes while I was playing with the unit, and that's something that you can't say of something like the HX Stomp for instance. This screen on the unit does look good. It's nice and high contrast, you can really read all of the text quite nicely, it's just the right resolution. However, the viewing angles are a little bit rough. I was initially planning to have this on sort of a top-down setup, but I just couldn't see the screen whatsoever. I'll try and capture a little bit of that on camera, but yeah, you've really got to be somewhat face-on with this unit to be able to read what it's got. So that is everything I've got for my first impressions and my first look at the Hotone Ampero II Stomp. If you are interested in grabbing one for yourself, it would be awesome if you could check out the affiliate link in the description box down below, as it gives me a nice little kickback. Please stick around, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of the upcoming content I've got with the Ampero Stomp 2. While it's here, I'm going to do a few videos with it. That's everything I've got for this video. I've been Kai.